Please won't you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together find their way into the heart of God this morning. Amen. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Mary Ludy writes this story. I know an old woman who worries about outliving her partner and most of her family and friends. The grief that anticipated loss messes with her sleep and the fear. With them gone, who'll look out for her? She doesn't want to die alone. She confided all this to a friend. His advice? Join a church. Church people will take care of you, he said. You won't be alone. She was taken aback by how crass and self-interested his advice felt. Hi, I'm Sally. I'm old and getting older. I'm joining your church so I won't be alone? What kind of reason is that? If people knew she'd come hoping for a few visits and a casserole someday, wouldn't they feel used? She decided he must be kidding, but he wasn't. I don't know whether she'll do it, but I hope so, because her friend is right. Anybody who's ever been lucky enough to be part of a loving church knows it. To approach such a community for company and care isn't selfish. It's giving that church a chance to be church. Some Christians think that the church is most fully what Christ intends it only when it's publicly engaged in the struggle against the sinful systems of our unjust world. But the world's access also tilts towards God's dream whenever some random old woman or anyone at all comes to us to be accompanied and is met with open arms. Amen. It changes the world. So we are humbled that you joined our church, new members, right? Yeah, you can clap. Clapping is humble. We will take care of you if you ask. You have to ask though, right? Church is a covenant. We have to know what you need in order to serve those needs, amen? And we can do it together, but we need to know. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics just published a survey. Did you all see this? In which they asked people what was the happiest, most meaningful place on earth for them. And the number one answer was places of worship. Did you see this? It's kind of weird, given the decline in attendance at places of worship across the country. I guess it's like one of those examples of humans, I don't know, not knowing what's good for them or something. For the first time in American history, more than half of our fellow citizens do not belong to a religious community at all. It is countercultural to join a church now. It's hipster, especially if you're younger than 65. It's true. As Jared pointed out last week, that makes church rock and roll, right? Countercultural. I don't know if you've visited other houses of worship lately. Have you? Raise your hand if you've visited other houses of worship lately. Yeah. Okay, so good portion of you. Those of you who haven't, you should know that the decline is actually stark and striking, right? Those of you who've been, the decline is stark and striking, especially in New England. Not just because of the things that we've talked about before, like hypocrisy and abuse by clergy and condemnation of whole groups of people, but our local mainline Christian churches are dying because of a failure to change, adapt, make bold decisions with our money and our leadership, right? What's that expression? Idle hands are the devil's playground? Is that what it is? Idle hands are the devil's playground? Doug Davis always says this: when a church stops focusing on serving others and focuses on serving its members' wants and needs instead, it invariably leads to rapid decline, right? Amen. So small vision and infighting and tight-fistedness is church suicide. It's what kills a church. So many of our newest people tell us that they came here to First Church in Sterling after their beloved church declined until the average attendance on a Sunday morning was like 5, right? Or after visiting 6 or 7 other area churches where they were the youngest people in the room at age 65. It's true, you laugh, but it's true. Where there was a very part-time solo pastor and no children's programming at all, right? Many came here after their churches shut their doors for good. It is so sad. We're glad we can be a place for you, and we wish that your churches weren't dying. They tell us what they have found here at First Church was, besides just full pews, also warmth and vibrancy and joy and children, right? Teenagers. So many ways to connect and serve. In other words, life, right? Life. This church is alive. I wish other churches were alive like ours. All boats rise together. I hope you know how good you have it, one of our newest members said to us. I hope you know how good you have it. First Church in Sterling. People often start coming to church because they like the preacher's sermons or the music or something like that, but they stay because they make friends. Anyone can watch this entire service online. Hi, Facebook Live friends. You don't have to be here to watch my sermons. You can see them on YouTube. We can all play our favorite old and new hymns on Spotify at home if we want to, amen? There's a reason new people walk through those physical doors instead. They didn't come for me, they came for you, right? They came for you. They need a place to connect to God or something bigger than themselves. They need hugs. They need fellow travelers on the journey. They need spiritual depth. They need a place to serve meaningfully. They need joy. They need a place to raise their children. They need a place to belong, right? Is that why you're all here? Some of you probably forget why you're here, those of you who've been coming forever. This sermon series is based on St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. In it, he says, I've been boasting on you to the Macedonians. Now don't make me a liar, right? Be the people I said you were. So First Church, these people, these new members are trusting you with something beautiful and something vulnerable, their hearts, right? Don't screw it up. Make good decisions with your resources if you want this place to be around for your children. Know how good you have it and give more of yourselves away. And I know it is safer and easier to be watching from the couch, but being church means showing up. If you can be here in person, come. The world's axis also tilts towards God's dream whenever some random old woman or anyone at all comes to us to be accompanied and is met with physical open arms, right? Jesus asks us to make actual sacrifices to love one another. So that brings us to the text that we read today. Famous Maundy Thursday text. I always make the teenagers in confirmation wash feet on Maundy Thursday, and they're always the most scared of that, right, Rowan? It wasn't that bad. Oh, Rowan, a ringing endorsement. It wasn't that bad.
I was probably the least worried about it.
You were, actually, because you're Rowan. You're a good Boy Scout. That's true. And Marin just freaked out. Oh, yeah, and his sister freaks out because she has to do it this year. Wash feet! Anyway, Jesus says to love one another as I have loved you. Anne Lamott tells this story in her book, Bird by Bird. An 8-year-old boy had a younger sister who was dying of leukemia, and he was told that without a blood transfusion, she would die. His parents explained to him that his blood was probably compatible with hers, and if so, he could be the blood donor. They asked him if he could test his blood, and he said, sure. So they did, and it was a good match. Then they asked if he would give his sister a pint of blood, that it could be her only chance of living. He said he would have to think about it overnight. The next day, he went to his parents and said he was willing to donate the blood. So they took him to the hospital where he was put on a gurney beside his 6-year-old sister. Both of them were hooked up to IVs. A nurse withdrew a pint of blood from the boy, which was then put in the girl's IV. The boy lay on his gurney in silence while the blood dripped into his sister until the doctor came over to see how he was doing. Then the boy opened his eyes and asked, "How soon until I start to die?" This little boy thought that he was being asked to sacrifice his life for his sister, and so he made the courageous decision to pour out his life for her, to die so she could live. He knew no other way to love. That's the kind of love we talk about when we talk about the self-sacrificing love of God embodied in Jesus. Love one another without regard to your own life, ego, or pride. Live only for others. That's the message Jesus mandates the night before he dies. After tenderly washing his friend's feet, like Marin will do later this year, and feeding them supper, he says this: "Love one another as I have loved you." We worship a God who asks us to bow down before one another, vulnerable and disarmed. We worship a God who over and over again demands that we look down to see him, so we can see those he has bent down to love. We worship a God who hosts us at a party that everyone's invited to, who feeds us, who serves us. We worship a humble God. And what does that look like? Jesus is a stooping God. Jesus stoops to pick up children. Jesus stoops down to write in the dust on behalf of a prostitute. Jesus stoops, using his body to embrace the downtrodden people who we would rather not see, the outcast, the leper, the poor, the sick, the lost, the forgotten, the prisoner. Jesus stoops down to pray in the garden. He stoops down to carry the cross. He stoops after he cries out, "Father, forgive them," and dies on a lynching tree. Jesus stoops. And on the night before he dies, with the people that he knows will deny and betray him, he shows us how to love by stooping down to do what would normally be a slave's job. He washes filthy, worn out, sweaty, dust-covered feet. He washes the feet of his friends. "You'll never wash my feet," Simon Peter declares, horrified at the idea of his Lord doing the work of a servant. Simon Peter does not want a stooping Messiah. He doesn't want a humble Lord. He wants a personal relationship with a supernatural, wish-granting God to meet him on mountaintops and in the grandeur of the starry night sky. He doesn't want to be told that the only way to know God is to bend down to serve other people. "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me. You'll never get it," Jesus tells him. If Peter isn't willing to accept the humility of his stooping Messiah or the humiliation of his crucified Lord the next day, he won't understand the depths of God's love. God's love looks like sacrifice, not kingship. It does look like kinship, but it doesn't look like kingship. His love looks like humility, not glory. His love bows down, it does not lord over. So First Church, today I'm bragging on you, I'm boasting on you because your love bows down. You are people of self-sacrificial love. You are the people who make the coffee. You are the people who carefully put back the chairs on the metal chair racks and turn off the lights after a budget meeting. You are the women who pray for each child as you knit prayer shawls for our confirmands. You are the men who support one another over at Dunkin's on Saturday mornings in the Houghton Room at men's breakfast. You are the folks who cook meatloaf and mashed potatoes in the parish hall kitchen for those who come to our community lunch. You are the people who give me these ridiculous things to wear on Sunday morning to advertise the box lunch auction. You are the people who leave vases of flowers on the chancel when no one is looking. You are the medical team that bends down in the dirt to hug children in the sugarcane villages of La Romana and the Dominican Republic. You are the Heather Kleins of the world who write beautiful get well and condolences cards on behalf of all of us, trying not to let anyone fall through the cracks. You write down all of the names of those who ask for prayers in our Facebook group and get down on your knees to say their names before you go to bed at night. You are the mentors of our confirmands, the teachers of Pizza Church and Sunday School. You are the bouncers of babies. You are the people who teach our children what it means to be community. You are the people who look at your budgets and decide to forego your daily latte at Starbucks to raise your pledge so that this church can continue to be a place of loving embrace for those who long to belong. Your vision is bigger than keeping your doors open and the heat on. Your vision is to create heaven on earth, one loved person at a time. Right? Beloved, if you want to see God, stop looking up to the sky or the pulpit or the White House or the high throne or the heavens or the gilded empty cross on the wall. Stop looking to the winners. Look instead to the floor, to the basin and towel, because you'll find Jesus there. And if we're going to lead the love revolution in Massachusetts, which I know we are going to, we're going to have to start on our knees. The world's access also tilts towards God's dream whenever some random child of God comes to us to be accompanied and is met with open arms. Let the church be the church. Amen.